Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Universe podcast. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. This podcast is brought to you by US CAD. US CAD is a leading AEC technology and consulting company, as well as a Autodesk Platinum partner. Today, we will be talking about the Montana Department of Transportation's digital delivery of their cloud services and Autodesk technologies. We have Aaron Powell and Melanie Zubok, and they've led the initiative to take Montana Department of Transportation and help them implement their technologies. Thanks for joining me, you guys and girls. Sorry.
Great to be
Thank you for
here.
having us.
So, Melanie, wanted to talk about your role at US CAD and what your involvement was with the Montana Department of Transportation.
Great. Thanks for the intro. So I actually came from industry. I spent a handful of years doing land surveying, civil engineering for a couple firms local to the Southern California area. Believe it or not, started with US CAD 18 years ago. And
Wow.
I really stepped in to help our CEO at the time offload some of the training responsibilities. So when I first started, I was teaching our civil engineering customers the technology. So I'm going to date myself here, but I used Land Desktop and was teaching that at the time, AutoCAD and Civil 3D. And then probably about 10 years ago, I moved into an account management role. So now I manage our larger government infrastructure accounts, really spread all over the US. I'm based in San Diego. Started working with Montana DOT, gosh, 6 or 7 years ago. It's been a blast. It's been a journey. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Aaron?
Yeah, so I'm Aaron Powell. I've been with US CAD for a little over 9 years now. And previous to that, I was in the civil industry, survey industry, planning, all that good stuff on the private side. And just in the last year, took the position of solutions consultant. Prior to that, I was a technical resource. So I delivered a lot of training and a lot of mentoring and things like that. Still do that, but on top of that, I help our sales representatives like Melanie here do a lot of the pre-sales meetings and consultation prior to the engagements, the training or the mentoring or what we're going to do, software sale and things like that, demonstrations, things like that. So yeah, it's been a fun time with Montana. Yeah, with Montana, I've been involved with them for about, oh man, it's
Okay.
probably 4.5, 5 years now. And just yeah, and we went out there and talked with them and developed a training plan. They were in the mix of doing this transition from one software to Autodesk software. And when they did that, they wanted to go completely cloud solution as well. Right. So not only are they doing a digital delivery, now they're doing digital delivery plus the cloud solution, no internal servers for the design departments and stuff like that. So we went in and we set that up. We talked to them. We kind of vetted out what, their folder structures and all that good stuff, all the technical aspect of what that would entail. Like I
Yeah,
said, 4.5, 5 years ago. So
it's been a
been involved
process,
for a
right?
while.
So one of the curious questions I have, because I don't handle too much state stuff, is digital transformation, acceptance of technologies, right? So the states and these DOTs, what were they doing before they implemented technology like Autodesk? Oh boy.
Uh, so, I mean, and most of them are
Yeah,
still in that realm. They're still talking
yeah,
about it and not moving forward. But man, I mean, when I was in the public sector, to get a
yeah,
set of as built plans or get a recorded map or to deliver our plans right to them, it was setting an appointment, walking into their offices, gathering that data. Where now this digital transformation, this digital delivery, and things like that isn't all just our submittal of our plans or a BIM model and working in collaboration in the cloud or anything like that. It is also the information that we can gather
yeah,
on the internet, right? So a lot of their GIS implementation, a lot of their scanning of their old
yeah.
as-built, their hard copies, their microfiche, all that stuff is being digitized and put onto their websites to make it more available to the public as well. So all that is kind of in the same realm that we're talking about with that digital delivery and that digital, model and that BIM,
Yeah,
software and all
all
that
that
good
is
stuff.
super important. 2023, we're moving into a new phase of like infrastructure. It's crumbling. We need to fix it. We need to prioritize it. We need to triage it, figure out what needs fixed first. It's just one of those
Yeah.
places where we need technology to quickly help us advance. And this story is kind of ironic because Montana had a wildfire from the way it sounds and a bridge burnt down. Is that correct? And then this whole started, you were already in proof of concept, I think, with them implementing the technologies like Civil 3D and stuff. But did that push it to the next level of them using the tech faster because of the incident?
It was the
Yeah.
proofing, the proof that it actually could deliver in a faster, more efficient manner, right? The bridge department has always been an advocate of the Autodesk software suite, suite of software from Revit and Inventor and InfraWorks and Civil 3D and the collaboration process and knocking down their silos and opening up that communication and collaboration. But I think that bridge, as Wolf Creek Bridge, burned, and they had I mean, they're basically the city or the town was isolated, right?
Yeah.
They had to have that bridge, and they had to have that transportation object in place. And by implementing that software previously, but then showing and proofing that, hey, we can get it done, and we can get it done within months instead of years. Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
was very valuable. They were able to demonstrate the value that the Autodesk software could be, and I mean, they were doing their design and their design options as they were in construction, because I mean, if you read
Yeah.
there's articles and all that good stuff out there about it. But there was supply and demand issues with the concrete and the rebar and all that stuff. So they were revising their model as they was being constructed at the same time to get that
Wow.
built out.
That is really
It's an
cool.
amazing story.
Melanie, when you're working with DOTs in different places, different states, what are some of those things that um, you know you hear from different states in these departments of maybe not using the technology, they're just not ready for it yet? Is there anything out there that you hear of why they might not accept the technology that Autodesk provides?
I mean, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is change, right? Everyone's a little reluctant to change. Um, Aging workforce has a big part of it. You've got this aging workforce that they're used to the technology they're using, and they're not willing to try something new. But as you see more individuals coming out of college, usually the individuals coming out of college already have some Autodesk knowledge. They love the technology, they're using the Autodesk platform, and getting these individuals in these DOTs and these government agencies is really pushing the needle for us.
Yeah, nice. How is US CAD helping implement that, Melanie? You're part of like, I guess, finding, technologies, I guess states that are looking for technologies like yours. How do you find them? Like, how do you connect with them? How does it work? Just curious.
I mean, it's a networking game, right? I
Yeah,
think where we really started with Montana is in the bridge group. And since we
yeah,
found success there, we're going to other DOTs and starting to tell this bridge story that we had. The tools that Montana had were inadequate. They were seeking something new. They engaged with Autodesk and US CAD and were blown away by the tools. We ran a proof of concept that moved into pilot projects that ran for years, and other groups and other functional areas got wind of that, and that really lit a fire under Montana to go out to RFP and change their design platform.
yeah. That it's truly remarkable what I saw in those designs after the bridge burned down and how fast they developed it. I think it was a shock to them just watching the video I watched of them talking about how fast they designed it and started building it, design, build like right away, and to do it in months is amazing. So kudos to you guys for helping strategize it, put it together, and connect the dots. It sounds like, so to speak. I was going to ask, like, there's a shift to digital delivery now, right? There's a shift that's happening. within these states. They're starting to hear the stories of Montana. They're starting to understand that they need to switch to digital transformation and digital delivery. Where do you think we could do better at getting them ready for what Autodesk has to provide to streamline their processes? Anybody want to take that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. To get a new DO, or not, I guess a new DOT or a
Yeah,
DOT to actually think about it, right? Because Montana is a big advocate. They're out there. If any of the other DOTs that we talk to want to hear hear something about a proof of concept, or why are they using it, we can refer
yeah,
MDT Montana to them, and MDT is we'll talk about it all day long about how great the software is, how again the collaboration and everything works together and has knocked down their silos and communication. They're a huge advocate, and that structural department is one of the biggest advocates as well. But when we go, like you're back to your original question, like how do we approach it with a new or a DOT and things like that. Again, like Melanie said, we can start with the structural, but really all the departments, right? All the design functional areas can
yeah,
benefit from the Autodesk software. Um, we can start with the structure because there is a story behind it. There is a proof of concept behind it and things like that. But now that they've gone through their pilot projects and NDT's gone through this process, we have success stories in every functional design area, from transportation, roadway engineering, to right of way, to cadastral, survey, and I mean, there we
yeah.
it's an easy talk track now.
Yeah, I
To
bet
be honest, yeah.
it's a no brainer when you start to hear the stories and you start to watch that video I watched. It makes total sense to me of how fast they can design the bridge and got it implemented and started building it. Melanie, is there a certain reason why they decided to partner with US CAD? Can you speak to that?
I mean, US CAD has been around since 1999. We started in the civil infrastructure and government space. So that's where
Okay.
we got our feet wet. That's where we started. We are the best of the best when it comes to our technical experts. We partner not only with Autodesk, but other best in class technologies such as Bluebeam, Panzera. So I think it was a no brainer for them. We went in, we lifted up the hood, we helped them with their pilot projects. They really saw our technical team. Aaron was instrumental. I don't know how much time he spent at their office helping them, but I mean, it was a no-brainer to them if they're going to partner with someone who's Autodesk specific to work with US CAD.
It made a lot of sense when I was watching the video. The communication was streamlined with the technology. It sounded, and you guys implementing, being there with them, putting it together as a consulting firm too, helping them, guiding them through that process was instrumental. It seemed like. But can you speak, Aaron, to the communication on the technologies? Because it sounds like from all the engineers from the MDOT that were working on it, they love the communication process of getting all the construction guys on the platform, and it really streamlined that process. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So not only internal communication,
Yeah,
but external communication, right? We can collaborate with Autodesk, cloud solutions and things like that with our consultants, right? So the construction portion of any of those projects and things like that, they can see a real world 3D model of
right.
what's it going to look like, how's it going to be built, where should we start, and all that is awesome, as well as not only was the bridge department, involved in that, Wolf Creek project and getting that done. And I mean, within months, it was crazy how fast they got that built. But they had to get others involved as well. They had
Yeah,
environmental issues, I'm sure of. It was on a
yeah,
crossing of a river and all that stuff. And then on either side of that bridge is roads, right? So they had to have the transportation, the engineers and stuff involved as well. So it wasn't just bridge, but bridge is the spotlight of it, of course, because what they
yeah.
did in that small time frame. But yeah, that communication, it, you hear the stories, not with just MBT, but other DOTs, on how long things take because of all
Oh
the,
yeah,
paperwork and the communication. You can't just call someone on the phone and ask for a set of plans or ask them for their drawings, right? Well, now with, MDT's Autodesk solutions, bridges can be working on various iterations of a bridge design, and the road design, the right-of-way design group, the environmental group, they can all be collaborating at the same exact time. And also sharing those designs and those design iterations with the
Yeah.
construction, department, and or even external construction, their consultants, and going through and communicating, hey, if we go this route, do we have the supply, right? Do we have the materials available? No, but if you went with, more of this or less of this, we do have enough for that, and vice versa. It's mind blowing listening to the conversations that they had, and how they collaborated and things like that in such a timely
Yeah, I think there
fashion.
was one spot they were talking about the guardrails they had to change because of supply issues. They weren't going to be able to get them in time, it sounded like. So they made a decision quickly off the other part of this is you integrated the technology
Yeah.
with another technology too, which was integral in this whole process, which is huge. But yeah, the supply chain issue was at the same time, it sounded like. So there was a lot of difficulties trying to get those supplies lined up, I would assume.
Yeah, there was issues with the pilings and stuff as well. Like there was a certainly this their first iteration of the first design was with fewer
Wow.
larger pilings, and then the contractor came back and said, if you go with multiple or more smaller diameter pilings, we have that available right now. We'd be able to get it. Either you're going to wait some time, or we can get it, to the site and
Yeah.
get under construction, ASAP. So they went back and redid another, design and proofed it out, and
Yeah.
that's how it got built. So, yeah, it's
Well, and
Yeah. The
an amazing
technology.
story. It really
Go
is.
ahead.
visualization piece so you can communicate design intent, because while Aaron and I have an engineering background, people that live in the area that want to see what this bridge is going to look like, it's going to be in their backyard and they need to get approval, they can communicate design intent. So the model's there, they can visualize it right away.
And that's what people want to see. They want to see the visual. They don't. They can't understand a blueprint
No.
because
Yeah.
there's too much stuff on there to even go through to even try and figure out what
Yeah.
you're building. But what I saw with the model was amazing of the bridge. I think they were talking about hydraulic issues was a major concern for them, obviously because of snow melt and things like that, and the terrain. I'm sure was a big concern of theirs. Can you speak a little bit more of like how you solved that problem with the hydraulics and stuff?
Yeah, the software has a
Does
lot of
it?
the
Okay.
hydraulic stuff built into it, of course. Uh, yeah, so Civil 3D has multiple software, or I should say, tools in it for hydraulic and hydrology
Nice.
calculations and things like that. Um, and then InfraWorks, has the floodplain modeling, and it has a whole bunch of tools in there as well. And then pulling the two together with their Revit models and their all their whatever else they were using at the time, because they are still structural designers, so they probably use all kinds of structural software as well that
Yeah.
I'm not aware of and I couldn't tell you about. But being able to pull all that data together, not only to design all that and come up with iterations of designs, but cost, right, and construction documents. I mean, and you think about how long it takes to design a bridge, just a small bridge, but
Yeah.
it could take years, right? Going back and forth between design iterative, getting in approvals and all that stuff. So what Montana did with that scenario, that project we're talking about, is amazing because, as a designer, as an engineer, and you go through those different, options or whatever they went through, the iterations and stuff, because the supply and demand and supply chain and all that stuff. But then they get approval, right, at the same time, not only from internal approval, but like Melanie was talking about, that public approval as well. Um, I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
amazing story. Yeah.
The federal government has to approve the bridge, right? So I'm sure there's a bunch of back and forth. I would assume with the bridges and things throughout the country. Is that I don't know all the rules, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, and being
Yeah.
able to present it the way they did. Yeah, yeah, and then being able to present it the way they did, and not, hey,
Yeah.
here's a piece of paper, right? And having to mail that, or snail mail, or whatever their process was to get it, federally approved and internally approved and all that stuff. Having those 3D models and that visual aspect
Yeah.
of
The
it, I
bridge
think
department was
probably
talking
helped a
about
lot.
like Excel spreadsheets during the video. I was like, holy smokes, they're talking about Excel spreadsheets. I was like, oh wow, this has had to be a mind blowing to see the technology, because digital twins, all this stuff that's coming. Speaking of digital twins, I know they were talking about taking the Autodesk technology and you can start to get into the digital twin. Can you talk a little bit more of how that is going to take us into the future, with using the technology?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can, and Melanie probably can as well. We talk about this all the time, but yeah, those digital twins that's amazing, right? We're taking a three-dimensional BIM model, and then having it built in the field, being able to use all the drone technology, right? All the scanning
Yeah.
technology these days as well, so they can go and we can scan it, we can design off that scan. But yeah, the digital model, and then taking it from the digital twin to the next step, which is like GIS and data asset, that asset
Right.
management portion of it as well. Now they can start talking about, okay, this bridge that we just rebuilt was done in this date, and this is the material it's on, and they can put all that digital asset, and gather all that information and have it in the future for any kind of future issues or catastrophes
Yeah.
or anything like that as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the progression, right? We go from hard copy to a digital age to a digital twin to a data GIS and data asset management, and on and on. And they're even talking now after you do data asset management and all that stuff,
Oh yeah.
applying cost to all that, right? So it's just the financial portion of it, and how much is it going to cost to maintain, and how much is it going to cost in the future to replace and maintain these structures and the
Yeah.
things that they're designing. So and all of that is available, even when we're doing
Yeah.
pre-design, right? So you do first model, and you can spit out all that stuff and see it all at
Yeah.
what it's going to look like hopefully at the end, and how much it's going to cost to maintain and replace and all that stuff. And they go, oh yeah, that's not going to work, or maybe it would work, and then they can go back and revise it. I mean, it's really, really, really
Melanie, what do you think about
eye-opening
digital twin?
I was going to
on that.
say, I mean, Aaron pretty much nailed it. We're getting
Yeah.
into operations and maintenance, and that's what we hope to see next from the digital twin. The architecture realm and buildings, they've been doing O&M for a while. I think the civil infrastructure space, we're a little laggards. So to have that ability with these digital twins and move forward with the technology, I think that's the next thing we're going to see.
Yeah, it's definitely the future for all of us in infrastructure. Can you imagine the life cycle? Hopefully, we can expand the life cycle of the infrastructure past 100 years. Hopefully, if we can get good construction materials and all the other stuff, labor shortages fixed and things, and we'll be in good shape. But where were some of the lessons that you learned, or the best practices that you've learned during the Montana, implementation of their technology, all that stuff? Was there any lessons that we learned and you can speak about?
Uh, there is a few, right? And we had a debriefing at the end of the pilot project, we called
Yeah.
the project closeout, for the implementation with MDT. And some of the things we talked about were getting a larger group of people at the beginning of the project from all different departments involved at an early stage, because even if you're talking about one department, you're talking with one department. We have what is called a success plan engagement, where we go in and we talk to a group of people in that department, and find out what their current work state flows are, what the current state is, what software are you using, what does your project look like, what's the process of that project, and then where are we going? How can we implement the Autodesk software in lieu of, and maybe more efficient and streamline that process, right? And having a larger population at that point and talking to that, because you mentioned Excel spreadsheets. Some are still using that, right? And other methods. So talking to a larger population, you get to hear all the different aspects of their current workflow and their life cycle of that project. And then we can, with that data, then we can start mapping their desired state or their future state, with the Autodesk software. So it helps to have have a larger population. Two is to have, basically innovative
Yeah.
population, right? You don't really want to talk to the people, and it's not an age thing, but you don't want to talk to ones that are going
Right.
into retirement, right? because they're not wanting to learn new software. They don't want to learn the new workflows and things like that. So you want to get the innovative, the ones that are trying to streamline currently their design process, and just be more efficient and effective in their and forward thinking. So having a larger population, an innovative population, and that's exactly what MDT did. They went and they selected the groups that we talked to, and we did the success planning engagement with, and the pilot project with, and things like that. That wanted to learn the new software, wanted a better workflow. They saw the benefit, they saw the value. Some of those were, 1 or 2 years out of college, and some of those are 20 plus years at MDT. Right? It didn't really matter as long as they're not just on the exit, the exit strategy. But the younger ones that are out of college, they had been exposed to Autodesk software, so they knew, and they got exposed to it in college, and then they got out and they started using a different software, the current software that MDT was using, and they were, and then they're excited to start using Autodesk again because they knew the benefits and the potential that it have. So I mean, those were some of the best known practices, the best things that we can do if we're going to replicate this through other DOTs, which we are doing now, is having that larger population, having that innovative population. But then just the communication portion of it, their project management staff at MDT was just unbelievable. It still is unbelievable. I mean, I just went through my emails. I was off last week, so I just went through my emails, and I probably had 15 emails from them. Just hey, we need to set up some meetings. We need to do some interviewing. But it's always just that open communication is amazing. Where you go to other private firms or other DOTs, and it's like, well, you can't talk to me directly. You have to talk to so and so, and blah blah blah. That hierarchy, they just knocked all that down and said, you basically their senior level, exec level at MDT said, you have full range, just make it happen. And that was probably the best thing that could happen.
Yeah, to add to what Aaron said, they had buy-in at all levels, and I think that was key in their success. They had executive buy-in, they had buy-in from people actually in the trenches doing the work, wanting to move forward. So buy-in at all levels was really why they were so successful in what they did.
Yeah, and a scenario that came around at the same time that they needed it and implemented it fast, and it was a perfect storm, so to speak, for this situation. How are you going into other like civil infrastructure, I'd say local governments, state governments, things like that? How are you going and targeting more of those local government wise too? Just curious.
I'd say from my perspective, targeting the local government is really looking at the people that are innovators, right? I look on LinkedIn, who's excited about technology, who wants to move forward, who wants to make a difference and make changes. And those are usually the people that I go after to start working with because they're excited. They want to adopt technology. They don't want to be left behind. They want to move data to the cloud. They want to collaborate with people in and outside of their organizations. So that's where I found success.
Do you think we're almost out of time, but I got a curious question. Do you think that there's just the nervousness of, habits of doing things traditionally in engineering that we're just stuck with, and then accepting new technologies is just tough because you're so used to using those Excel spreadsheets, for example, you're so used to it. Is there a way that obviously with everyone retiring, yes, that's one thing, but implementing this in a way that it's accepted faster? Is there any ideas of how to get acceptance faster?
Yeah. So there's that, job security portion of it, right? I've been doing it for 30 years. I use all these Excel spreadsheets, or I use, these calculators and all that stuff, right? And then stopping that and learning a new software, a new method, or a suite of software, right? And a new implementation process, and collaboration, and it's totally different. It's change. Right. We don't like change, right? Civil engineers, surveyors, our industry is just anti-change. That's probably why we're such laggers, like Melanie mentioned before. But with US CAD, and one of the reasons we excel at what we do is, like Melanie mentioned, we have a great technical staff. So we go in and we do that success planning engagement. We find out what they are currently using, how we can plug in the Autodesk software to make their job more efficient. And then we follow up with that with our training, right? We do training engagements. We get them up to speed as fast as possible. And it's not just, hey, this is what the interface looks like, now go and run, right? We do from fundamentals to advanced, all the other, and everything in between. And then we do pilot projects, and we call those mentoring projects, right? So they're starting a project from scratch or at a certain percentage, 30, 40% down the way. So we do not only starting a project, but maybe migrating a project from another software, right? So we do have a migration process. We have to, starting a new project. Where do I start? Because once like all of us, we've done software training. And okay, that's cool. Microsoft Word's cool or Excel's cool, but now I got to do my work in it. How do I do that? Well, that's where USCAD steps in and does the mentoring. So we sit with them either on site or off site, remotely, and say, okay, where are you at? Okay, well, you have the existing surface. All right, cool. We have the existing topo. Now, what did you used to do? How did you used to do it? And then we start mapping that, and we show them how much more efficient and faster it is in the Autodesk software. And it's mind blowing. They can get their job done sooner. They can sign off the day earlier, not work overtime, not work, any of that good stuff, and have more time with their friends and family, at the end of the day, kind of thing. But on to the next project.
And what's huge, and change comes into effect, right? Like, so they've built this model, and then the client or whoever, you need to make a change. That's where the digital delivery really shines, because it's a couple clicks here. I've made my changes. Everything is automatically updated. Bottom line, digital delivery, it lowers project costs and higher constructability. So it's the wave of the future. We're dipping our toe in. We'll get there.
We're getting there slowly but surely. We're going to get there, and we're out of time. And wanted to give you guys a chance. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to connect, Melanie, to get in contact with you?
Oh, for me, email would be great. Melanie.Zubok@uscad.com. I'd love to hear from you. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Aaron?
Contact Melanie.
You don't have to put yourself out there. Just curious.
You can find us on the web, uscad.com. It has our phone number, our contact information, everything. My email is Aaron, aaron.powell@uscad.com. And I was going to give you Melanie's cell phone number.
It's fine. Bring it on.
You're such a nice guy. Way to be. Good job, Aaron. Well, thank you both for joining us or joining me on the podcast. It's our first episode of the Universe podcast, and you guys were the first ones. So that's a big deal, I think. That's what we're going with. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.